Thank you very much, and welcome to the VMware Technology Forum. Witajcie. I hope I said that correctly. As you know, as you can tell from my accent, I'm obviously not Slovakian nor Czech. I was born about 150, 200 kilometers south of here in the Alps. So my title, as you can see here, I'm the Senior Director for EMEA Industry. What do I do for daily living? At VMware, I run a team of 6 industry directors. And we specialize, coming from an industry perspective and from an industry expertise, having run factories, having run banks, having run defense in a NATO environment, for example, having run public forces. Our industry directors actually help you as our customers to understand better what VMware is doing and how VMware can help you perform better, provide better services, innovate faster. So that's my daily bread and butter, and I'm really happy to be here, and especially in this large room with so many healthy people when half of Europe is actually sick. So thank you again for being here. Now my theme here, and again, it's about the VMware community, right? My heading was keep the world moving no matter what. And we know that today, and we've got the war back east, the terrible scenes there. We do have the pandemic that is still haunting us. We do have supply chain issues worldwide. We can only survive as a community, right? VMware's got great technology, but without the technology actually being adopted by you as customers, and without having great partners like the ones we have here today, HP, Google Cloud, and others, we could not make it work. So it's really great to have you all here and bringing this community together. And for those of you who have been at Explore in Barcelona, have also heard that many solutions actually build on VMware's technology, but then build out the better package or the comprehensive package and the solution for you as customers. So what are we hearing today from an industry perspective? What are the big challenges? And we all know that the cost is actually one that is probably with all of you, right? We need to cut budgets, we need to operate more efficiently, not only from an operational perspective, but then also from an energy savings perspective. We need to digitize more. We need to keep our operations as automated or drive them as automated as possible. And by doing all of that and digitizing, we obviously get much more exposed to security issues and cyber attacks. As we adopt a multi-cloud environment, as we partner with third-party services, as we increase our applications out there in the field, as we open up APIs to our partners, that obviously exposes our data, that exposes the data of our customers, right? So we are getting more and more exposed to attacks. As we've seen the last couple of years, the attacks have increased. So it is one of the topics that obviously VMware is also trying to address from a technology perspective. And then last is the energy topic that is also very familiar to all of us, both from a personal perspective. I mean, my energy bills, for example, increased twofold over the last 2 years. And I'm sure it's similar to you here in Slovakia and the Czech Republic. But it's also affecting our manufacturers, our banking customers, our telcos. Everyone is impacted by the energy crisis. So we need to lower our carbon footprint. We need to look at more sustainable options. And technology can help. But where there are challenges, there's also opportunities, right? And that's the pleasure that I have every day when I talk to customers is what can you actually do with VMware's technology, with our partners' technology to become better, to become smarter, to serve your customers better, to serve your employees better, to actually attract and retain talent, which is one of the topics that everyone here is facing, is especially in Europe, we do have limited workforce, limited talent. So everyone is hunting for people and talent to come into the company, but then also stay and not run with the expertise that they've probably attracted. And we need to drive operations, right? As I said, I do have industrial background. I've built my own factories in metal engineering. My family business is currently supplying to most of the largest rail OEMs, such as Alstom or Siemens. And we've also come from a very, I would say, traditional factory background, right? As you can imagine, family businesses, and there's lots here, I know, in Slovakia and the Czech Republic too, that I've already worked with from a supply chain perspective. We all have legacy systems, right? But we can't take away the legacy systems and then just go to the cloud right away. So we need to be able to deal with both environments and transition in a certain pace that slowly de-risks operations and makes us more innovative. So there is all sorts of potentials here that we're trying to address and help you as our customers come to terms with and innovate faster. So what keeps really our customers going, and what we're seeing today, is that applications are the lifeblood of our innovation, of our transformation, right? We see over 300,000 projects starting every day, and we see over 80 million workloads running on our technology. Now that is all great, but as you can imagine, you know, I've just had a customer the other day saying, yeah, we've got 400 different projects running at the same time. We're really great in terms of we're attracting, you know, talent, we're developing applications, we have all sorts of POCs in place. Great, but how many POCs have you actually scaled and have you put in place? And then it was like, yeah, that's the challenge, right? We're running lots of projects, but then really translating those into scalable applications, scalable, secure, and actually manageable over time as applications develop, is the tricky part. And that's really the conundrum that we're talking about when we talk about chaos. We're not telling you as customers that you're all in a chaotic environment, right? Because that would be, I guess, foolish to say that everyone is just dealing with lots of chaos, because you don't. But what we're saying is that the complexity of our environments, as we go to a multi-cloud environment, as we develop applications both on-prem, cloud native, edge native, we do have that complexity that is currently dooming and haunting us. So we need to have a different approach that actually takes us to a much smarter, more innovative, and much more transparent stage. And that's really what VMware is talking about, right? We want you to be as smart as possible, to apply the technology that's available today, to innovate faster, and develop those applications in the most efficient and manageable manner, so that you can go out to your communities, to your customers, to your partners in a much more transparent way. Now let me pick off, you know, as I said, I've got industry background, and I do want you to take some of the examples that I've brought with me today back to your company, to your teams, and just think about what other customers have done, because that's, I think, what we tend to do at VMware. We love our products, obviously, and we do have great technology, but we don't talk a lot about what our customers have actually achieved. And I just want you to take some of those examples away as potentially an inspiration, but also a discussion topic to think about what you might be able to do and take away from that. So when we talk about the different challenges, especially from an application perspective, right? As I said, it's all great if you've got all these application development topics and projects going on, but you tend to develop in different application clusters on different application platforms, right? You do have a preference of a container or a Kubernetes platform, be it in Amazon, be it in Azure. It's very difficult to maintain the oversight of where your applications are developed, how you deploy your application, how you manage the life cycle and the pipeline of those applications, and to actually ensure that all of those are sufficiently managed. So with Tanzu, and here is my first customer example, we're actually able to take away that complexity of Kubernetes from you. As I've got here, Drax Group has just recently received an award for being the most innovative renewables company in the UK. And what they've said is that actually, and you might be familiar with the term of legacy applications, right? We do have great legacy applications. There's nothing wrong with our legacy applications, but actually they all work in a very siloed way. So we don't really, don't have a way to connect these applications, to leverage the data that we actually pull through those applications. We need to re-architect the way we're looking at applications and actually invite more talent in to help us develop faster those applications, because we need more insight, more transparency to better manage the energy that we're generating and the energy that we're distributing. So again, for the greater cause of obviously the energy crisis and better, smarter energy management, Drax actually now re-architected their application architecture and applied Tanzu in its most generic way to say, please help us orchestrate all these Kubernetes platforms plus our legacy systems to better manage the application lifecycle and the development. So now they've been able to speed up their application lifecycle. They can now invite talent in, i.e. contractors, to help them develop applications faster. And obviously by itself, as a company, also better manage and better get transparency to the data. The second example that I brought with me is Sparkasse. And I guess most of you are at least familiar with the symbol, the Sparkasse symbol. Sparkasse, obviously being a financial services provider, have got a very large real estate portfolio to transact real estate transactions and services. And similar to what Drax Group is saying and what you might be facing as well, is they have lots of branches, they've got lots of business units, and every business unit obviously has a justified business structure, justified applications that by themselves are working really well. There's nothing wrong with them. But actually, when you look at the customer journey, I don't know whether you have bought a house recently or any other property, but when you go through a journey of selecting a property, then you're trying to get the estimates for it, you're trying to get the mortgage. So it's a very lengthy process, actually. And if you then have to go from application to application, file your new data 1 million times over, it's a very long process. You don't really like the journey as a customer, right? And the bank or Sparkasse has lost customers throughout the way because it got way too complex for the customers to actually fill out all these forms in different portals, etc. So again, Sparkasse actually now leveraged VMware's technology, both Tanzu Labs and Tanzu, to actually get better in terms of connecting the different systems and connecting that customer journey to a seamless journey and retaining that talent and the customer journey to leverage that. So when we talk about innovation, obviously applications are the lifeblood, as I said earlier, and we do need to drive applications. But what do we need for applications to run on? That's actually the infrastructure underneath. So VMware is obviously known for its infrastructure, virtualization capabilities from a data center perspective, and is the one platform, I would say, probably in a very unique position, and probably the most unique out there to really be as agnostic and holistic in terms of providing an infrastructure that is seamless, no matter which cloud environment you're choosing, right? Whether that's the public cloud and the multi-cloud that most companies today adopt, or whether it's all the way down to the edge, to a machine level, to a branch level, to a retail store level. So with VMware's technology, you can actually manage the deployment of workloads no matter where you'd like them to be, no matter where cost-effective they are, to really place your workloads as they pertain or as they belong to the users that are using them. VMware's technology really, from an on-prem perspective, so if you're looking at the wider cloud portfolio, right, as I said, you go from the very public cloud environments all the way to the edge. You do have different environments, and we had a strategy where we had the cloud-first movements a couple of years ago that really accelerated during the pandemic because everyone was rushed into cloud adoption because there was, during the pandemic, the most effective or the simplest way to get your applications out there and available to your staff or to your customers. But actually many then rolled back and said, well, we really need that hybrid approach, right? We do have certain applications that can't run on the cloud, and we can't migrate or refactor them as quickly as possible. And for IP perspective and for IP reasons, data protection reasons, we don't really want them in a public cloud environment. So we need to have that hybrid capability. And that's where, again, VMware is in a unique position to provide you with the on-prem or the private cloud environment and the public cloud environment as well. And together with our partners such as HP, and we do have our HP here, following my notes here, we do have a partnership with Equinix that we've just recently announced, and obviously our Dell partnership. So again, we're evolving the models, such as with HPE, a pay-as-you-go model, to make it very convenient for you to deploy the VMs as effectively as possible on-prem, as well as then leverage the public cloud and the bare metal environment from Equinix. And what you've also heard, those of you who have been at Explore in Barcelona, is that we are extending our multi-cloud environment from a VMware cloud perspective to many of the other public clouds. Now, talking about public clouds, most of you have probably heard about Gaia-X and the sovereignty movements, data protection movements around Europe. Those who are in the automotive industry have heard about Catena-X as the speedboat of Gaia-X to really show the capabilities of data sharing in and across an industry, both from an OEM perspective all the way down to the tier 2 suppliers. It's all about data sharing, but when you share data, especially in the public cloud, and I believe that's also going to be a topic for potentially a challenging question for the panel later on. What do you actually do to protect me as a customer when I share my data on a platform, right? Do I really have control over it? Can I manage my data, and do I have that data in a sovereign cloud environment to be able to really control my IP out there? And I was speaking with one of our customers recently who also said, yeah, I'm part of the automotive community. I'm supplying my tires to God knows how many OEMs, right? That's my daily revenue that I'm taking, or that I can create from working with my partners and working with my customers. But there's a lot of IP in my tires, in the business that I'm doing, in my manufacturing. If I expose all of that data into the public cloud or into a shared environment, I'm not sure where that data is actually going. So I do need a sovereign environment. And that's where VMware has now started to bring VMware's capability together into a sovereign cloud offering. And together with our partners, we provide the VMware certified sovereign cloud offering that is now also available to you, and has been trialed and piloted over the last year with the Gaia-X endorsement. We are an early member of Gaia-X. We're also a member of Catena-X. And what we're really doing is we're providing our services from a VMware cloud perspective, but then also the security perspective around the data governance, around the full visibility of where the data is getting to, the applications that you're deploying across different cloud environments in a sovereign environment. Now, talking about the different cloud perspectives or cloud environments, the last one that I want to talk about here is one of my favorite topics, actually, is the edge. Why the edge? Because it's also close to, again, my heritage in terms of factories and the edge being out there and very close to us as customers or consumers. Everyone has got an iPhone, or at least a smartphone. We have our applications with us every day. We have the data with us every day. And so is, the edge is proliferating. The edge is actually, when you listen to analysts, one of the probably most expansive and upcoming ecosystems there are over the next few years. There's over 170 billion being spent over the next few years in edge applications, edge infrastructure, etc. Why is that? Because most people have realized, and when I talk to customers today, it's the same thing that I'm getting back, or the same answers that I'm getting back is, yeah, we've moved some of our workloads or many of our workloads to the public cloud, but actually when we get down to the edge, when we get down into the nitty-gritty detail of our operations, the cloud doesn't really work for us because it's got a different requirement, right? I do have low latency requirements. I need data real time. I do have different security requirements. I do have different applications. I need more transparency. I need the control from a security perspective. I need to have my IP really, strongly protected. So those topics are being flagged to us and have been flagged to us for a while. Now with VCF, for example, and most of you are familiar with VCF, we do have a great environment, but it's got data center footprint, right? You can't really take that to the edge because it's got, too much, it would take too much capacity. So VMware has now tuned its portfolio to be available at the edge. And when I say that the edge stack that we've announced last year and then this year with 2.0 is one that's got a smaller footprint and it can be sized to your operations needs. What do I mean by that is if you have a factory or if you have plants and warehouses or in a retail environment, you've got your supermarkets, super hypermarket, right? Hyper Albert, I think, is next door. You've got a hypermarket, you've got the supermarket size, you've got the mom and pop store on the corner. Those different sizes of operations have very different needs, right? You don't need a high availability cluster in a mom and pop shop. You don't need a high availability cluster in a warehouse environment, but you do need application availability and you need the data security out there to actually be able to provide the data that's needed for daily operations. So VMware has sized its portfolio to be available at the edge and help you operate out there in the branches, at the factory level, at the machine level, much faster and much more efficient. Now, let me come to one of my favorite examples. And you're probably familiar with this picture of all of you who have been in a factory who are producing for automotive customers, and I believe Skoda is here today. That's the Audi factory in Germany, one of the Audi factories in Germany. Now, Audi actually came to us last year and said, VMware, you are great. We've got great experience with you on the data center side, on the enterprise side. But we haven't really done a lot on the OT side with you, i.e. the operations technology in the factory. But we are really facing proper pain on the factory side, right? We do have supply chain issues. We can't get technicians in there because of people issues, be it the pandemic, sickness, or else. We do need to innovate fast because we've got electric vehicles now on the line. We've got the traditional vehicles on the line. We do need to shift our production depending on which supplies we're going to get from the market, and we might not know within a 2-week window what we're actually going to get and produce. So we really need to increase the flexibility out there. But we also know that we still got a lot of legacy in our plants. We know that we are depending on certain vendors, such as Siemens on the programming side, on the machine side. So how can we actually work together with you, VMware, to be more flexible and agile? So fortunately, we have done that work on the edge side to come to meet some of those requirements, and we've started to work with Audi to implement and further accelerate the vision of a fully automated, fully software-defined factory. Now, for many of you, that might still be like, oh my God, this is all a great vision, but is it actually possible? Now, when I tell you that, we now have a very successful and live pilot at the Audi A8 factory in Berlingerhöfe in Germany live. I'm actually getting goosebumps because it's really something that is unique to VMware, and is actually showing that we do have that capability if we just go with a customer. Some of you, to co-innovate and to actually bring that to life. So what we've been doing is we've actually taken several of these Windows servers, every one of those, and there's about 1,500 in that factory, 1,500 industrial PCs. You can imagine the effort of patching those servers on a regular basis, keeping them updated, when they're actually running some very simple workloads of just displaying a couple of numbers to the operators on the production line, right, or running a robot system. So we've consolidated the Windows servers already on our edge stack, and we're now starting to get into the more real-time and the really fancy and sexy applications, which is the PLCs at the machine control level. So we've looped in Siemens to actually drive the virtual PLC element and take away some more of that hardware and abstract the programming control units to also a software level. So imagine if you can abstract all of that hardware into a software-defined environment, you now have all those application or those advantages that VMware can bring into the data center side as well. You can automate services, you can deploy your security policies on a button click, you can manage your updates, and you don't have all these sneaker guys running around with USB sticks updating your servers on a daily basis. So for Audi, that was really one of the key advantages that they saw in that concept, is to have that flexible, scalable environment by adopting a vision like that. And as I said, it's available now. We've got board buy-in, we've got great executive sponsorship, which is all necessary to drive a vision that is obviously impacting operations quite a bit, but it's a very major step forward also for Audi to bring to the VW group, and then hopefully to the wider automotive community and manufacturing community. Now let me give you another example, and I do know that, well, I think we've got police representation here too. UK police car, some of you might be familiar with it, who've been to England or London. I hope you've never been in the back of a police car. But what I'm showing you here is, the police cars in the back are really heavy. Why are they heavy? Because there's a lot of equipment in there to actually record videos, take data from the different locations, being able to provide network capabilities out there when there is no city environment with no good connectivity, etc. So again, it was something that, out of a workshop with the police, it's like, well, we're trying to provide better service to our police staff out there when they're driving around on duty. We're trying to roll out MS 365 to provide better application services, to bring the data to where it really needs to be, right? And that's where police stuff is most effective, is if they actually have the data rightly available. And also for our crime scene, it takes us ages to actually go through videos, because first we record them in the car, and then we need to take the whole recording back to base, and then we start going through the recordings. And there's obviously a huge lag between the two activities until you actually get to really dissect the crime scene, etc. So as you can imagine, that's all of that hardware also had the effect of having to maintain the whole hardware piece. So with VMware's technology, with our SD-WAN capability, where we're actually able to provide the police with better networking, and much faster connectivity to those applications that were needed out there in the police cars, no matter where they are, right? Whether they're in a great city environment with good connectivity, or whether they're out there in the field with potentially no or poor connectivity. And we actually went a step further and said, well, actually, how about we help you drive that real-time visibility of a crime scene, right? The videos that you're taking out there to to look at a crime or look at an accident, how about we actually help you at the edge with that real-time capability, with those real-time analytics to actually drive that data real-time back to base and help you drive those analytics and be much more efficient and effective. So I think that's a great example of how VMware's technology can be applied in some of the most humanitarian and obviously public sector, law enforcement type environments. Now let me come to the next bigger chapter, and I think, as I said in the beginning, workforce is one of the biggest topics here in Europe. We do have potentially less mass of employable workforce than the Americas have or the Chinese worlds have. What we do need to do is obviously to retain talent, is we need to provide employees with the right applications, the right data at the right time, in the right place, right? Now, as VMware, we are spoiled because we do have Workspace ONE, and Workspace ONE basically follows us everywhere we go, so we can work 24/7 if we want to and if we can. But what's really important is that we also give that flexibility to our customers. And when you do that, in a multi-cloud environment, in a multi-application environment, in a multi-network environment, it gets really, really complicated, right? To provision devices, to provide the apps with the right performance in the right time. So VMware has invested heavily into the Anywhere Workspace environment and technology portfolio that we're providing today. What's really important is that when you start providing those services to your employees, you're now starting to become to get a much more efficient and productive employee and employee workforce. Most of our customers see much higher engagement and you can probably tell from your own experience, right? If I have the data right here and there, I can work anywhere I want. I don't need to wait for an application to load. This is very frustrating because we're all spoiled by our iPhones and having the data rightly available. So our employees have just the same requirements, the same expectation that our employers will provide that to us. And the same applies to your customers and partners, right? As I said, Michelin, for example, our tire manufacturing customer, they've got 200 factories out there, and what is it they need, right? In a factory, you have less or different requirements than you have at a corporate side. Your dealerships, your distributors have, again, different requirements, but everyone needs the data as quickly and as real-time as possible. So let me give you some more customer examples here. One that you're familiar with, and you're probably driving a BMW or one of the BMW cars today. What happened during the pandemic, or when the pandemic hit, actually, it was like, where are designers and engineers going to design, right? Everyone had a desktop. They were used to coming to the office, most of them being somewhere around Munich, so it wasn't really a big challenge. But then the pandemic hit, and all of a sudden it's like, well, we need to keep designing and engineering our cars. We can't just stop. And the board, or the BMW management, said, well, how about virtual desktops, right? So just get them out there and get them connected and provide the apps. As many of you might know, some of those engineering apps are super heavy, and they won't run on your iPad nor your laptop. So the only way to really provide your engineers and designers with the capability is through a virtual environment. Now, what happened to BMW at that time was data centers were full. So where do you go with your virtual desktop environment? You can't deploy them on-prem in your data center. So the only way we were actually able to work with BMW was to actually provide Horizon on a public cloud. So right now they were able to, over the last couple of years, set up their Horizon on Azure, and therefore go towards their vision of providing virtual desktops within 10 minutes of request from the user. As you can imagine, that's quite a big transition, right? Going from probably a week to 2 weeks of providing a virtual desktop or a desktop to any employee or any contractor, to 10 minutes is a huge leap. But obviously, with that said, you can not only save cost because you're basically dispatching a virtual desktop, but you also get your contractors, your employees effective pretty much within 10 minutes. And that's something similar that we at VMware have experienced. Myself, I started when the pandemic hit, so I was onboarded virtually, and really within 10, 15 minutes, I had my working laptop, all my applications readily available, which is an experience that obviously, all of us really treasure and are thankful for, because we can be effective and productive, within minutes. Let me take you to one more example here. McLaren, you've probably heard of the partnership that we announced last year. As spectators, we always hear about McLaren, or we see the Formula One cars going around the tracks, right? And we know it's exciting, and we love those drivers and the heat and everything. But actually, what's behind those Formula One drivers is a really large team, both on the front office, i.e. in the pits, in the pit lanes, but then also back home at the headquarters in the UK. And because of our partnership, I've been lucky enough to go to McLaren a couple of times last year and actually see how that really works. And if you have a chance to go there, please do so, because it's actually really exciting, more the back office than probably on the track somewhere in Monaco or elsewhere. How they work with each other, and it's like this real-time collaboration and communication between the pit lane and the engineers in the pit lane, the driver in the car, Daniel or another, or a new driver, and the engineers in the back office at home, to actually tweak the car and tweak the settings in milliseconds of a time. So what's really critical to McLaren was the fact that we've got all these devices out there in the field. We need to move those devices every other week to a new track. We need to ship those devices. Those devices are exposed to different environments, sandstorms in Saudi Arabia. We've got humidity back out in Asia. You've got cold or heat on the more hotter tracks. So we need to have those devices working reliably, and we need that connectivity out there. And we need that real-time data communication to our employees. So again, Workspace ONE was the choice to partner with us, as well as the edge capabilities that we're now working on together with McLaren, to really build out that capability and have them as nimble as possible at the track side, and allow that real-time communication. So again, it's a great story, and you'll probably hear more of that over the coming year on how we partner and help McLaren be more performant and be in the top ranks. Let's quickly talk about security, and then I finish off with the sustainability and energy topic. Now, on the security side, we all have security in place, right? But most of our security is not adapted to those multi-cloud, wider ecosystems and complex ecosystems that we're operating today. Most of us work on hardware security, right? We've got firewalls in place, we've got the racking with the different security elements, and then we've got the endpoint security on the device level. But that's not really good enough for those attacks that are currently coming in today. And most of you have seen Log4j last year, that has been in place for a while and is probably the most long-lasting cyber attack that we had, because it was actually someone coming in, not just coming in to steal data, but actually coming in to stay. If you've heard the keynote from Tom Gillis, he also said that this was something, and he's been in security and networking for ages. He said that's probably one of the worst attacks he's ever seen, because it was intrusive, and it was intrusive to stay there. It wasn't there to collect data and then ask for a few million or several $1 million. It was actually there to intrude in your networks, in your applications, so that you won't even know of. So half a year later, we finally got hold of and we analyzed what that did. But that lateral security, that east-west-bound intrusion is really something that is on top of minds today with most CISOs, most of the ones that are working on the security topics today, and those cannot be resolved with the traditional model of the more perimeter and endpoint focused solutions. So what VMware has invested in and is continuing to invest in, you've probably heard about Project North Star. You've heard about the new NSX editions with additional threat prevention, with our additional load balancer capabilities, and with Carbon Black being fully integrated in our security portfolio to really provide you with a much larger set of tools to cover that lateral security element as well. And what you'll see with additional tool sets like ARIA is we give you that intelligence to actually look into where your workloads are going, how your workloads are performing in different cloud environments, right? Because usually when you work with your Azure stacks, when you work with your Amazon tools or other tools, you only have that siloed visibility. But VMware as the platform and VMware as being the diagnostic overlay, you really now have visibility across the different platforms, and that gives you that intelligence to say, well, actually, that application over there is really performing in a strange way. Is that the normal behavior, or is there something else going on? So that intelligence really provides you with much more preventative capabilities to react or be more proactive in your security approach. Now, let me give you 2 examples here as well to just relate that back to where you are coming from and operate in. The University Hospital of Essen in Germany is one of the most innovative hospitals that we've got on mainland Europe. Why is that? Because they're starting to really take advantage of technology, both from an operating theater perspective, but then also into patient care, leveraging AI, ML to train some of their surgeons to provide better care, both in the hospital, but then also on the outpatient side. And what they were saying is like, oh my God, if only one cyber attack hits us, you can imagine our equipment won't work, our bedside services won't work. We're actually threatening patients' lives. So we really need to be much more intelligent about security and how we structure security. We know we've got all these hardware tools in place, we've got the firewalls, etc., but that's not really working anymore in a smart and digital environment. So they've partnered with us to implement a more software-defined networking and security environment for the hospitals. And then the second example that I briefly mentioned earlier is Michelin. Most of you probably have been driving or are driving Michelin tires. Well, a tire as well is no longer a tire by itself, but is actually quite intelligent because it includes sensors today that talks about the driving behavior, etc., and feeds that back to the car if anything is wrong on the track, etc. So again, Michelin partnered with us to secure the operations. Now let me come to my last point here, and then I finish off and hand over to the next speaker. Just in terms of innovating and energy savings, VMware is obviously a big player in the virtualization arena, right? We're a big player in the ICT community, but at the growth rate we're going with cloud environments spreading, with the edge environment spreading, the ICT sector is actually one of the biggest offenders in the space, leveraging lots of carbon footprint. And we're helping, VMware is by itself committed to drive lower carbon footprint, to drive sustainability. So we do have it on our own agenda to become more energy efficient, but we also want you as our customers to be as energy efficient as possible, whether you work in your private cloud environment or whether you work on your edge. So we do have now tools in place, and some of you might might be familiar with some of those from an ARIA perspective. That is a compilation of our VROps, VRA capabilities that actually now provide you with all that capability and all that transparency to really see your whole environment. Whether you've got zombies of VMware, of VMs in one environment, whether you've got idle workloads in another, whether you're actually working cost effectively, whether you've chosen the right cloud that is actually already a sustainable cloud. Because right now, VMware also certifies cloud providers and partners whether they actually are sustainable, whether they use renewable energies for the data centers, whether they also have ESG goals on their agenda, etc. So let me just come to the last couple of examples, and then I finish off and hand over. VMware is currently working with grid providers, energy providers, to really virtualize the grid. So we're now going down to the substation environment, to distribute energy, but more smarter and more virtualized, operate those substations in the grid. And then last but not least, everyone here probably loves bikes. I do too, but mostly because my husband was riding bikes and was riding Ducatis in the most dangerous environments. But also those vehicles or those bikes are being electrified. And for electrified bikes or electrified vehicles, we obviously need charging stations. And as you might know and heard of, those charging stations out there, every one of these endpoints are super high or super attractive targets for cyber attacks. And they're probably also the most vulnerable pieces that are out there in the market today. So VMware is partnering with several of those energy providers or electricity providers, charging station providers, but one of them that I want to bring up here is Alperia in northern Italy. Some of you might go to the Dolomites for skiing in a few weeks' time, or might go for a tour in northern Italy to the Adriatic or Liguria for the summer holidays. If you have an electric vehicle or if you have an electric bike, likely is that you're charging with Alperia on the northern Italian side. Alperia has partnered with us to actually secure those charging stations, to be able to securely deploy and manage applications out there on the charging side, and then also secure the data that you might have on your charging card that might be in the car, that because while the car is charging or while your bike is charging, you're actually exchanging data. So again, one of the examples that I wanted to bring up because it's something that we as consumers never really think of, we as VMware customers probably never really think of, is how VMware's portfolio, especially at the edge, can not only help you save energy, save efforts in terms of administrative tasks, but also help the wider cause of making your life easier, much more pleasant, but also secure from a data perspective. So here is coming together. As I said, I wanted to bring in your opportunities from a market perspective, revenue generating perspective with the VMware portfolio today and tomorrow in the near future that can really help you drive revenue, drive your operations in a more automated way, and also help you retain and attract a much more productive workforce. So thank you again for being here. Thank you for listening. I wish you all a great afternoon. Děkuji and děkujem. Thank you.